Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Industry Showcase. My name is Amanda McKinley, and I'm the Manager of Member Engagement here at Digital Health Canada. A reminder that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for download from the Digital Health Canada website. Today's Industry Showcase is presented by Enovacom, transforming data, creating sustainable value, how the CHUM accelerated its investment in its interoperability strategy despite and because of COVID-19. Moderating today's presentation is Digital Health Canada CEO Mark Castleman. Question and answers will take place at the end of today's presentation. Please type your questions in the Q&A box at any point. Please make sure it is in the question and answer box and not in the chat box. Thank you so much for being here today, and I will now pass the presentation over to Mark Castleman.
Thanks, Amanda. Well, it's great to be with you today on this important topic, and our industry showcases really highlight the collaboration, innovation, and the spirit of working together to tackle challenging problems in healthcare in Canada. And today, thanks to Enovacom, we're hearing about a great initiative and the story behind some challenging work to manage two disruptive innovation projects that happened in the midst of COVID-19. And really looking forward to hearing more about that story. I'm going to start out by asking Alain LaRochelle. Alain is the country manager for Enovacom, to introduce our esteemed panel today. And Alain is, many of you know, an engineer and a leader in the innovation space, and will really bring forward this outstanding panel and story to us. We'll have a good chance to ask some questions after each of the presenters shares their information, and we'll get into the moderation at that point. Alain, let me pass over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for enabling Enovacom to host the Industry Showcase webinar. Well, let me first by introducing our guest panel, and starting with Joanne Gay. Joanne is the Director of Information Technology and Telecommunication at the Centre Hospitalier de l'Université de Montréal, CHUM for short, and has held this position for the past 5 years. She holds a master's degree in administration and a fellowship. Throughout her career, she's held various management positions at the CHUM with diverse mandates that led her to face projects in the clinical, admission, archiving, and laboratory departments, just to name a few, in the context of computerization and digital transformation. Thank you for being with us, Joanne.
Hi, thank you.
We also have Anil. Anil Madar is a pre-sales consultant for Enovacom, and he's been working within the UK and international team, providing technical support. He joined Enovacom in 2015, following a rich career in secondary and primary care organizations across the UK National Health Service, the NHS. He was witness to the evolution of the mindset of many healthcare organizations relative to digital transformation and interoperability, and brings experience and, more interestingly, anecdotes about projects in the UK and abroad. Thanks, Anil, for being with us.
Thank you, Anil. Hi, everyone.
My background includes working in innovative companies, and thanks for the kind introduction, Mark. I've been working with companies in the healthcare space, such as Emergis, now TELUS Health, IMS Health, now IQVIA, and now I'm currently at Enovacom, owned by Orange Business Services. I'm currently working with the CHUM on an innovative project that aims to deploy our cloud-based interoperability platform to connect all healthcare facilities, including teaching, urban and community hospitals, long-term care facilities, as well as community clinics across Quebec. So let me start by framing the context. I've been talking to a number of IT directors across the nation, and here's what they share with me in terms of their reaction, their gut reaction, when there's a request to integrate two systems. It's a reaction of first anxiety, right? Knowing the difficulties that they have in assigning the right senior resources that are so scared to a project. Sometimes the reaction is wariness, because it involves touching critical systems, and you know what they say in healthcare: if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. Kind of applies here. Sometimes is it a reaction of excitement, of the challenge of working with two vendors, battling it out to make sure that they integrate? Perhaps not. In the end, whatever your gut reaction, you know you have to deliver on those projects. So what we hope to accomplish in this webinar is to show you how the SHRM tackle these challenges. And in the end, my objective is that you can see or you can evaluate Enovacom as one of your many options to help you tackle those challenges, whether it's in integration or biomedical interoperability projects. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Alain, for that great introduction. So why don't we start out with some conversation and questions to really highlight the background and where this initiative began. I'm going to turn this over to Joanne for your perspective on sharing some ideas on what compelled the government to deploy this innovation and a national integration engine at this time.
Good. So at first, maybe I can just present what SHRM is, because we're in charge of like Alan explained, we are in charge of the national project to deploy a platform with Enovacom, with all the integration for all hospitals in the country. So SHRM is at Montreal Center. It's a 772 beds hospital. We have 56 specialty, 36 operating room. We have more than 1,000 doctors working with us, more than 1,000 residents. So it's a teaching hospital. We have research, we have innovation. So we have a kind of we are able to do a lot of things, and we have a lot of information systems. So that's why we are in charge of the integration platform. And the other part of our partnership with Enovacom is that we deployed during the COVID pandemic the platform of interoperability with the biomedical monitors for vital signs on the nurses' floor. So it was a kind of a great project, and we managed to do that with all of our partnership with Enovacom and other stakeholders around the project. So what is the goal? Like Alan explained, integration is kind of an IT skill that it's kind of hard to, at this time, find, is a challenge for our team to find the expertise. So when we put together a lot of people that we can manage, it's simpler for the organization, and then we can help other hospitals to manage and standardize what integration is needed to make sure that we can manage the integration with the system information. So the benefits is that it will be standardized, and we can help other hospitals to approach the challenge. So integration can help them and facilitate all the communication between all the information system that people are using in hospital and other facilities, health facilities.
Well, thanks for that, Joanne. That was really interesting and framed out the problem space well for us on this discussion today. You've talked a little bit about the introduction of the challenges and opportunities with regards to access to data. Tell us about the current state now that you've implemented the Enovacom solution, as well as what led to that. What is different between your previous state and now your current state in terms of data access?
I think the goal is to standardize. There's so many ways to do integration, and in the past, people have their own home solution. And sometimes it's not well documented. So we are looking, when you have to manage, you have to make up just get your information system a new version, and you don't have the right information, and you can find kind of hard. So with Enovacom tools, I think it's help us to get to standardize and to manage that. You don't have to have skills so specific. You can integrate more junior people, so it's easier for us to manage the part of integration. So, and you know, data is the key in the future. You know, we know that data is needed for innovation, it's needed for research, it's needed everywhere. So people are looking to get access to the data, and I think that the tools, the platforms is giving us this opportunity.
Well, thanks, Joanne. How about from your perspective, Alain, as an innovation leader, engineer, you know, doing a lot of work across many organizations, what have you seen here from the opportunity to access data, and what is different now before and post the implementation of this solution?
Well, thanks, Mark, for the opportunity to answer. When I talk to IT directors, now the first thing that they tell us is that, Alain, you cannot just talk to the IT director. This is about a clinical value proposition, right? So in that whole approach, you see that biomedical engineers, IT directors, clinical staff, research, they all are very hungry for that data. So the challenge is to build an architecture that can respond comprehensively to all of those needs. And it's impossible if there's not a discussion. So what we've seen is before, like 5 or 6 years ago, you could see projects where it would be mainly driven by IT, right? We need to connect to those systems. We have an IT project right now, and we will attest to that, to some of the work that we've done with the SHRM. It's much more of a global team approach, where all of the requirements from each of these departments need to be taken into consideration as you lay out that infrastructure. And I think that's good news. That's good news because we're becoming a data-rich or data-centric ecosystem, where we're trying to derive value out of that data. And I think that's what's key. A lot of maturity from the different key stakeholders, as well as an opportunity or a willingness to talk to each other to have a comprehensive architecture to drive forward the business needs.
And as you share that, it makes me think about the integration engine itself and the technology that's being deployed. What's different here? What are some of the innovations that you're bringing into the market, and you're proud of from an Enovacom standpoint, that have really worked well in this application and others?
Great. Well, the first off is obviously integration engines. They all aim to do the same thing: capture the message from the source system in a standard A, carry it over securely, and transform it and deliver it to the target system in message format X, let's say, right? So we do all the same thing, right? So we haven't invented the four-hole button or anything like that. But we do it very differently because we pride ourselves to enable staff with more junior profile, as Joanne mentioned before, to actually use and configure the system. So now you can have data analyst, junior consultants, biomedical engineers, or even healthcare professionals use our platform. And as they build the configuration to enable those integration, then you can have your senior staff to be, which are more scarce, right? So they can weigh in to do the validation portion, as an example. So, and that significantly reduces the cost of deploying, operating, as well as updating the interfaces, and enables the hospital to deploy those interfaces even in low data transaction systems. So of course, most hospital in their emergency departments, in their operation room, or in the ICUs, they would have the ROI, the return on investment, to deploy those interfaces. But what happens when you go up in the floors in the hospital? What happens when you're, for example, in gerontology or oncology or neonatal or the others? Sometimes you don't have that same volume. And some of those IT directors tell me that that's why they're not deploying those integration projects, because they can't justify that. And just one last thing too is that the routines such as HL7 transformation, the data validation, all of these functions are prepackaged in the Enovacom solution. So when you build a connector, it's through a series of drag and drop and copy paste, and you're able to build that. And Anil will show that in the demo, which is much easier than to document, to validate, and to QA than some of the other engines that are more of a programmatic approach to them.
Okay, thanks, Alain. Joanne, I'm curious, we often talk about in digital health leadership, the prioritization of initiatives and how certain initiatives get prioritized. Obviously, there's additional challenges within the context of, pandemic response and pandemic management. Maybe you could give us some background on how this particular initiative was prioritized and the value that it brings to you.
Yeah, sure. Like everyone, like every hospital in Canada, we did have the same issue as everyone. We had a kind of up phase. We have at the phase one, at the peak, we did have around even near 200 beds that were COVID positive, and the nurses we were looking to find some issues, so help the nurses to walk in the room less often, and what can we do for help them to process easier. So I knew Enovacom platform, and we were looking what can help them, and I knew that if we can get the vital sign from the biomed monitors and send them directly to the EHR system, that could probably help them instead of transcription, go in the room. So I proposed that to my colleague, my nurses colleague, everyone, and we asked Enovacom, is it possible? We knew how they work, so it was we were kind of familiar with that, the way they were putting integration, and we proposed that to the high direction. So that's how it began, and in a few weeks we do a pilot, and we get the nurses in. So we managed to deploy the interoperability with the vital sign monitors through EHR for 2 COVID units, which was a kind of easier for the nurses to integrate information without transcription. So we get rid of errors, and it was kind of helping them to go through the pandemic situation.
Amazing. Well, nurses certainly are leaders on the front lines of care delivery, and that places nurses in a leadership position around digital technology, digital health as users and as drivers of that innovation. What were some of the challenges that you encountered with working collaboratively as you implemented with the nurses, and how did they find this initiative?
At first, they were interesting, sure, because if you help them to simplify the process, but sometimes technology is kind of scaring for them. They were used to transcript the vital sign in the EHR system, so that was already in their skills, but now we have to manage to get them. How do we change the process, make sure that it's easier for them? You have to also implicate others, stakeholders like biomed technician, make sure that all the equipment will be ready, will be available. So we have every monitor in every rooms, so it's easier to implement. So the big issue was to make sure that in a kind of a stress period, people are kind of busy, and to make sure that they took the time to listen. How can we manage? How we can help them? This was one of the issue. And then when they understand the benefits of what we were proposing and how it can help them to be more effective with their patient and do some more caring than transcription, then it can kind of flow. And we did progress kind of easily with them. But you have to explain, you have to make sure that they do understand, you have to make sure that every stakeholders are available for them to make sure that the process will be the gain that we were looking for.
Well, thanks for that. Yes, so many lessons learned, and change management theory in application. Very, very amazing in terms of the success that you've achieved, given the extraordinary circumstances. You know, I'm thinking, and I know, Alain, that we'll have a chance to take a look at, you know, the technology as it's implemented here. Really give us some good visuals around the discussion we're having, which is fantastic. Maybe I'll pass it back to you to bring in your colleague Anil to share, you know, some of the details and visuals on the technology at this time. I will note as well, sorry for everybody, that as we take a look at these visuals, there's an opportunity to add questions, if you like, in the text box, which I'll look to continue the conversation when we come back from this particular session.
Thanks, Mark. So Anil, the floor is yours, and take us through some of a short demo so that people can project themselves in our technology and our solutions. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So without further ado, folks, let's begin with a quick tour of our interoperability solution. So hopefully on screen, you should see the Enovacom Patient Connect login screen. And it's our web-based solution, Enovacom Patient Connect, which is our software-only medical device interoperability solution that unlocks potential of medical device data. And it has an option to be integrated contextually into EMRs or other third-party systems. This ensures a click-like user experience for efficiency, as we don't intend to add to your workload, but reduce it and optimize it. Basically meaning there is no additional login or patient searching, and it's all because it's launched contextually from within the EMR. But for this quick walkthrough, I've logged in directly using a web browser, and I will log in as an ICU nurse. So if I just start to log in. So I've logged in as an ICU nurse, and you can see the profile there in the top right hand corner of the screen. But with the screen itself, you can see it's a simple, clean and modern interface. And in the center, you can see the patient list with identifying information. And on the left-hand side of the screen, you should see the location or service of this patient within the organization. And as a nurse, you will have access to locations based on your role. And underneath each location, you start to see the dynamics of patient monitoring, because Enovacom Patient Connect is designed on the clinical environment needs of continuous care. So you can see the high acuity label here. This is an environment with characteristics that sees large and continuous collections of data needing to be acquired. And a good example is that of intensive care environments with assets such as ventilators and respirators. And for episodic care, you can see the label punctual care. And this is typically an environment or culture where periodic and episodic observations are made and collected from medical devices for shorter time periods. And this would typically include general wards, clinics, and emergency settings as locations, and would also include devices such as spot check monitors, pulsometers, ECGs, and CTGs as examples. And then we have a smart workflow known as autonomous monitoring, which you won't see on screen. And I call this a special ghost workflow. And I know this is being used at the SHUM. And autonomous monitoring is used when you have medical devices that are smart and can receive and display a patient list. So to give you an example, so if you can imagine a ward round scenario, the nurse will only have and need the medical device. Why? Because the patients will already be loaded onto the medical device, and that's all thanks to Enovacom Patient Connect. So after the nurse confirms the patient ID on the device, they would then just validate the observations on the device for each patient on that ward round. And the vital signs are sent to Enovacom Patient Connect in the background for standardization and direct integration into the EMR. And the patient record, and that makes available for near instant viewing. So you haven't seen Enovacom Patient Connect in this workflow because it's working entirely in the background. So to begin to look at those very few steps in the process of linking a patient to a device, I will use one that I can show you here on screen. So when searching for a patient here on screen or in the mobile version of Patient Connect, we've looked to automate as much as possible. So we are agile by being able to work with scanning technologies such as your barcode scanners, also including mobile phones, tablets, iPads. So you can really imagine the more efficient monitoring and collection process. And the idea of Patient Connect is really to create those efficiencies through automation. So for this demonstration, we have a patient, Matthew McPherson, who has been admitted into hospital and into the intensive care unit. And the hospital's EMR has been updated with this visit. And so our Enovacom Patient Connect product then brings that patient on screen and into the patient list via a real-time HL7 ADT feed from the EMR. And essentially the nurse or clinician needs to monitor this patient continuously, so the high acuity workflow is used. Now, as a nurse or clinician, I need to associate Matthew to the medical device, so we have a vital signs monitor set up here as a demonstration product. I will make the association. But in this list, you could imagine an array of devices in intensive care, such as those that you typically find in those environments: patient monitors, ventilators, pumps, anesthesia machines, dialysis, and blood gas analyzers. So as I confirm the association, you will notice the box closes and the patient has a green tag and a small box indicating a data management rule, so which you may have chosen for this device or even for the location. And in the background, what's happening is data is continuously being collected from the device. It's then structured and integrated into the EMR by Enovacom Patient Connect at the agreed predefined sampling rate or frequency. And that really explains the click-like process and an example of a workflow with Enovacom Patient Connect. So at this point, I would like to introduce you to our interoperability engine, Enovacom Suite version 2, so we can see what technology is being utilized in the background with the moving data from the medical device and the EMR for our patient, Matthew McPherson. So let's get my screens sorted. There we go. So you've seen the data collected from the medical device, and now let's see how Enovacom, with our web-based integration engine solution ESV2, with a wealth of experience working within the health economy, provides all the tools required to enable and manage electronic data integration and exchanges. So again, you can see I'm logging in through a web browser because it's again a web-based solution. And just as you expect it, it doesn't work. So I'm just going to load that back up again. Great. Just bear me a moment, folks. There we go. And here we have it. So I'm just going to log into the demonstration. Is a nightmare, but we've got through it. Okay, and so at this point on screen, you can again notice how clean and intuitive the screen looks. And just to give you an idea of the layout of the screen, in the center is a workflow designed and deployed to be specific and to the Enovacom Patient Connect and EMR scenario that we just showed you with Enovacom Patient Connect, where patient information is received from and enriched and sent on with results data. So on the left hand side of the screen is our function menu, and the center top you have a number of different tabs which helps you categorize the various workflows that you could have within your organization. And specifically this particular workflow here, it's using an integration language. It's a HL7 ORU workflow, which is a structured way of standardizing results data. But ESV2 works with any type of structure or standards and has an array of formats available to allow users to understand and, if required, transform when dealing with systems with different output messaging structures. Such as structures that include JSON structures, those with CSV, moving on to a data warehouse, or EMRs, utilizing various communication methods, as you can see on screen. And on screen, you can see that there are essentially components that are linked with good naming conventions to understand what each component is doing. You have numbers in between, which shows the volumes of messages running through the various states. And also color coding to allow you to see messages in error for red, messages in queue, orange, and ongoing messages in green. And notification and alert management on the platform is powerful and enables the administrator to be in complete control. It's important to note at this point that the operation of Enovacom Suite version 2, the integration engine, is based on 4 types of components. So on screen you can see a number of components with different symbols linked together. And these components are made up of inbound services. An example here is here. I'm just going to right click on that inbound service. And really, it's really there to import application data into ESV2. And as you can see, more importantly, you just need configuration to localize to the specifics of the client, no code or script. And we have a list of services such as HTTPS, web services, directory polling. So we have a comprehensive coverage in that respect. Services such as HTTPS and web services are great for automation and to support APIs and FHIR and really much more. And the outbound services enables you to export data from the engine, so the inbound and the outbound services. We also have bridge connections with databases also. And then you have the scenario component here, which is the square sort of TV looking with a component behind. So I'm just going to right click on that component. And the scenarios represent the heart of ESV2. And I can appreciate, folks, there's a lot here on screen for your mind to absorb for the very first time. These scenarios are composed of several activities. They encapsulate powerful APIs, making the complexity of these business rules almost limitless. And furthermore, it's possible to invoke scripts, if essential, with Groovy, Python, Shell, bat files, or even to import third-party APIs. The scenario editor is able to manage loops, condition functions, operators, file repository access, SQL queries, LDAP resources, error management, XML processing, everything that you could really think around integration. It's all natively housed, and all through menu-driven drag and drop tools. Transformation rules are also set in this scenario editor, where common projects include working with standards such as HL7 version 2, version 3, to the emerging FHIR standard, to modeling messages to include PDF, XML, JSON, CSV. So there's a lot there, and to ensure that your interoperability integration needs are comprehensively met. And in this editor screen, all activities are executed in sequence from top to bottom. And if processing is interrupted in one of these activities, the system generates an error, of which can be treated by some logic in order to stop or continue the processing. And this is where code and script is replaced by pre-packaged activities, as Alain mentions, and is clearly documented, so validation is clear for all parties in your integration projects. And nearly all of our customers are satisfied with the activities in the library. And also to aid rapid deployments, ESV2 enables all components and workflows to be reused by copy and pasting, importing and exporting, to move configurations swiftly in and across all of your deployments. And finally, ESV2 with our knowledge transfer program ultimately gives you autonomy and empowers you with a comprehensive platform to enable and deliver your interoperability needs. So this concludes the whirlwind tour of our products, and we look forward to you finding out a whole lot more. So I'll hand you back to Mark.
Great. Thanks, Anil. Appreciate the insights and sharing the platform with us. As you said there's a lot to see and dive into, and more to come as folks can follow up after the session. I do want to, as we continue on with a few moderated questions, want to point out that as the audience here today, participants can ask questions through the Q&A, and we'll get to those as we move forward. Alain and Joanne, I did want to turn it back to you both, now that we've seen the technology and the platform, to really get a sense of lessons learned, bringing together so many stakeholders in the midst of a pandemic and implementing this incredible technology project. What have you learned through this? I'll turn to you first, Joanne, from a clinical and technology digital health point of view.
What we've learned is that everything is possible if you if you have the right stakeholders, if you're convinced that it's going to get that the objective is really good and it will help your people. So I think that, like I said earlier, it's a change management, and you have to make sure that you are able to work with all people around you. And for sure, it helped us to standardize all the things that we have, the tools that we are working on with. So it kind of helped us, and we managed to do that in a few weeks, 6 weeks, and we were up and running. So it's kind of like the demo said, when you have the right people with you that do understand the tools, you can do that in a kind of rapid way.
I love that quote. Anything is possible. That's right, Joanne. Alain, from your perspective, in terms of bringing together this vast array of stakeholders, tell us some about your experiences in terms of lessons learned and things going forward from that standpoint.
Well, first of absolutely what Joanne says, right? When there's a will, there's a way. And our experience was we had to brace ourselves, because once the executives at SHUM decided that's what they wanted, everybody had coalesced for that project to be a success. So there was obviously we're in a time of pandemic, so I think everybody had that sense of urgency, right? So everybody knew that for the sake of the healthcare workers, the nurses in particular, and the patient, this thing had to get off really quickly. But sometimes we're doubtful, as vendors, with respect to the capability of hospitals and with respect to them getting together to organize themselves. And that was a great show that we were exactly at the same pace at the hospital. They were actually pushing us forward. So one of the great lessons learned is if you have the right stakeholders at the table, and then you can get alignment before the project is launched, then there's not going to be a lot of time invested in realigning during the process. And I think that's what was done. And Joanne Gay was, instrumental for having that. So she probably doesn't, put herself on that pedestal, but she's the one who brought the project together. Then the entire organization rallied around it, but she still had the responsibility of putting the project from point A to point B, right, in the end. And that required a lot of, I guess, off-camera discussion to make sure that everything's aligned.
Well, thanks, Alain. So Joanne, what's next for SHUM? Where do you go from here?
Actually, we are even before the Patient Connect project, we were beginning, and we started a few years earlier, to replace our local engine to make sure that we'll move everything on Enovacom platform, which is the national issue. So since we are in charge of that big project for all the province, we have to make example and do the thing in our hospital. So this is what's going on. We are already working on that. We have a big project that's coming with our labs, and we are in charge of the labs in all Montreal region. So we have to make sure that Enovacom will be a part of the big project with the LIS system changes that coming in this year. And we are still working. We will be able to add more monitors. At this time, we are still, we did standardize. We are working with one vendor of our monitor vital sign, but it's sure that in the future, we are looking to add maybe ventilators or something else, because the need, what we prove is that the need is there. The nurses, it helps them to eliminate transcription, and it's sure that in ICU or other clinical units, the needs is there too. So we will be working to make sure that we can manage and add more interoperability with the biomed equipment. That's what we are looking for in the future.
Well, thanks for sharing that vision. I see a couple of questions coming into our Q&A area, which I'll turn to next. But first, Alain, just to build on the visioning question, where do you see the future going? Broadly speaking, biomedical, digital health technology, sensor-based engagement, it's all growing and growing very rapidly. Where do you at Enovacom see the future in this area beyond the walls of hospitals? How do you see this area moving forward?
Oh, great question. The first thing is that we think that it's all going to be about capturing the data in an intelligent fashion, right? So not just capturing the data to capture the data. And what we provide is obviously the tools for our clients to actually grab the data from whatever system or biomedical devices or Internet of Medical things and bring it in their system. But what we've noticed with the SHRM project is that that was one portion of their requirement. They also wanted to feed their clinical research database. And it could be the clinical research database, Mark, but it could be anything else, right? It could be a transverse data repository, right? That for specific exploitation, if you want, in the future, right? Even if you don't know exactly what you need today, you have the possibility of capturing the data, then you should keep that data, even if it's for a future project where you're going to want to train a machine learning algorithm and try to compare what the machine learning algorithm would provide you as a clinical decision versus what was done in the real life. Even if it's for that, you have to have the capability of doing that. But the most important thing is that we're venturing in an era where even us, we don't know what's out there, right? So we didn't know what the pandemic was about. So we work diligently with our clients that actually help us pave the way towards the future. And SHRM is one of them. In our integration project, where Enovacom Suite V2 is being deployed across the province, SHRM and Joanne's team, with all of the stakeholders, have pushed Enovacom beyond what we currently did. And our R&D team actually bonified the functionality based on a unique use case. And that's what we do. Sure, we have an opinion. Mark, I have an opinion, right? So I know I want to chart the future. I want to be part of it. But it's much, as Mandela said, right? You go faster when you're alone, but you go much further when you're together. And that's really a case of bringing all of the stakeholders to weigh in on where we think the future is, influence us, so that together we can actually chart that future. And I think that's what's most encouraging, is our ability to work together and chart that future in the evolution of our platform.
Wise words. Go further together. Absolutely. That's an excellent quote and fits well this story. Some questions coming in. I'll turn to questions about Enovacom as an organization. You've answered a couple in the text, Ellen, but I'll just put them out so we have some conversation. Enovacom, international company. So maybe you want to tell us a little bit about your international roots with Enovacom and where you're centered, as well as following client needs in terms of data storage, data connectivity. As you said, there's lots of interesting opportunities going forward around devices and capture. Tell us a little bit more about Enovacom's vision and current state around storing data.
Great. So Enovacom, we have a Canadian subsidiary. We're wholly owned by Orange. Whatever data that we treat is treated in Canada. So I get the Patriot Act. So we want to keep, we're keeping all of the data in Canada. It can be hosted on the client's own infrastructure. It could be leveraged with the hyperscalers of this world. And if needed, we could even provide capability on our side with data centers. So we believe that, we want to accompany our clients in the data journey. So it's at the collection of the data, the transport, securing the data, and hosting the data. So we have solution in all of those. Like we have way more solution, but I'm trying to put it at the more simple level, is that we can capture the data, we can carry the data, convert, transform the data, and store the data.
Thanks for that. The next question I'll turn to both of you. Joanne, I know that SHUM, and this is a good example here, does a lot of work across the research side of the house as well as the clinical operations, and there's many challenges there which you've addressed for us today as well. This may be related to the research side, and Hélène also speaks to kind of the capabilities of the technology innovation. Question coming in around specifically integration with iPads and cell phones, but I think it speaks to the broader question and opportunity around mobility. And what are the opportunities that you see, Joanne, maybe in the current state or future with regards to mobile device integration? And then I'll turn to you, Hélène, to hear more about your perspective from the engineering and product side. Joanne?
Yeah, I think the question is kind of we do have to look forward mobility. People, clinicians are asking for that. It's more easier for them. But actually, SHUM is a new hospital, and we do have kind of a lot of equipment available for all our nurses, clinicians. And I think we have to make sure that process will be managed with mobility. Sometimes people think, because we are used to use our phone, and it's kind of simple, but when you're in the hospital with all the clinical system that you have to manage with, I don't think it's that easier. And that's what we have to make sure that we address before getting on all iPads and phone for everyone. And I think that's the big issue, that we have to make sure that we are ready for that. I think it's coming with IoT, everything. Technology is putting us on that way. But I think we have to do some reflection. We have to make sure that process will be able to manage with that. And that's a kind of a big issue, because technology is not supposed to get us what process is. You have to make sure that process is good for the care, for the situation. You have to make sure for the patient, and that's what I think. But it's coming in. People are asking for that. You have IT. We have to make sure that we will be ready for that. But I think there's more for us, some works to do before getting on all doctors and nurses on the iPad. But it will come. It's sure.
Oh, it's a good point. Well taken, Joanne, about the idea of clinical pathways and ensuring that you're designing the right pathways rather than just using technology to lock in what's the current state? How do you design for the future? It's a very thoughtful design approach. What about on the technology side? Alain, integration, mobility, mobile devices, what do you see currently and what do you see going forward?
And I like your approach, Mark, when you said you need to look a bit at the bigger picture. But I'll start with that use case, iPad and mobile phone, right? At the Montreal Heart Institute, for example, they've deployed Enovacom Patient Connect, and they're using an iPad. So we're currently working to make sure that, when they scan the bracelet of the patient and they scan the barcode of the patient, the association can be done right from their iPad. But it's a question of working with the client on a specific use case. So we already have the capability of doing that process I've just told you about in Finland with Enovacom Patient Connect, which is our biomedical interoperability solution. So that's because in Finland, the Jyväskylä new hospital, it's the largest, one of the largest hospital in Finland, have selected Enovacom, and they've asked us to be able to do the barcode scanning with the iPhone. But it could be done with any technology. It could be done with Zebra technology, as an example, if you'd have those barcode scanners, and we would be willing to adapt our solution. On a broader perspective, though, and I agree with Joanne, there's work that needs to be done and that's being done, upstream of the technology to make sure that all of the processes can facilitate that. So, as you know, technology is rarely the biggest constraint in terms of making those projects work. Oftentimes, you have governance, you have processes and whatnot. So we're a small part, I think, of the enablement of these mobility solutions. So we will continue to push the envelope to make sure that on a global basis, we will have solutions that are portable on any type of platform.
Thanks for those comments. We have one more question, which I'll make as the final question from our audience today. Great engagement on the topic. Before beginning to close out the session, this question is for Joanne. Joanne, are you able to quantify time saved by nurses using the Enovacom solution? How are you measuring that, the impact?
It's sure that we did some audit after we deployed. We did ask nurses. All of them were kind of saying that they have more time to care with their patients because there's not the vital signs are going in the EHR, so they have more time. It reduced the risk of transcription and error. How can we really probably few minutes, but sometimes it depends on what kind of patient you have to take care of, how often you have to take the vital sign. But at the bottom, I think we have to work, and that's what technology should bring to us. Make sure that all the tasks that are no value for our nurses or other kind of clinician, that's what technology should take place for. And even if we manage to get a few minutes a day or 10 or 15 minutes a day, I don't think it's a big issue for me. I think what we have to work on, and that's what technology should be for, it make sure that if you have some task without value for nurses, which is there to take care of a patient, and you have she has to spend time to transcribe or write something, we should work on that. So we don't have the right answer for all time they get, but I think the way they receive the new process and the way they are working with that, it's kind of helping them to make something else with the valuable time they need around the patient.
Well, thanks for that. I'll turn it to each of you for any closing thoughts or final statements that maybe you want to leave us with, as you think about those couple of thoughts, I do want to thank you all for sharing this use case and story today of innovation, collaboration, and partnership. This is truly a shining example of, and what we hope to showcase through these events that bring together stakeholders to drive the future of health in Canada and using digital solutions and innovation as a means to do so. So thanks for that. Alain, I'll turn to you first, and then to Joanne for any closing thoughts for us today. And then I'll turn it back to my colleague Amanda to close out the session for us.
Thanks, Mark. Well, at first I'd like to thank all participants of this webinar, whether you're from a healthcare organization, a vendor organization, or others. You can see our ability to help you in your projects, whether it's integration, biomedical interoperability, or data repository. And we think of data as a piece of information that can be captured wherever it is, whether it's at the hospital, at the, as we say, at the hospital at home, so at remote patient monitoring, or in the community and community clinics. And whether it's with, vendors that you know of, or a smaller device that has yet to be in the mainstream. So we're able to help you whatever your projects. So don't hesitate to communicate with us so that we can help chart the future.
Thanks, Alain. Wonderful. Joanne, any final thought on the conversation today?
I just want to thank you to have the opportunity to share with you our project. It was kind of we're kind of glad that we get what we did accomplish with our people, and I was glad to share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Outstanding collaboration, Shum and Enovacom.
Yeah.
Amanda, thanks for taking us through to close.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mark. Thank you to our panelists, Alain, Joanne, Anil. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to tell us a little bit more about your project. Thank you to all the participants who joined today's industry showcase. We will be sending out a short survey after today's presentation, so please take a moment to complete the survey. Your feedback is very important to us. Once again, thank you to everybody. Please stay safe, wash your hands, and have a great week. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.